Hello everyone and welcome to the Skybook webinar. Thank you all for taking the time to join us today. This webinar will focus on the Flight Crew Digital Briefing Pack and how our integrations help streamline that process. And this is the first in a series of pilot workflow webinars. At any point, feel free to put questions in the chat and we will answer them at the end. Now, joining me today is Sean McLean, our Senior Account Manager and Product Specialist, and I am Dan Cook, Head of Marketing. Just a quick snapshot of us before we go into the main event. So Bytron Aviation Systems have been in the industry for nearly 40 years. Our solution called Skybook is used by over 120 operators across over 130 countries. We have over 17,000 briefing packs downloaded on a daily basis. And Skybook has an industry-leading software uptime guarantee of 99.95%. To put it simply, we connect the workflow of airlines from flight operations to flight deck and back again. With our world-class dispatch system, streamlined EFB, and comprehensive post-flight data analytics, becoming that single point of truth for flight data management. Now, in this webinar, you will learn about our integration capabilities, see the benefits of a digital briefing with a short demonstration, our smart NOTAM filtering, and there will be a Q&A session at the end. Now, over to Sean.
Thanks for the introduction there, Dan, and hello to you all. As Dan mentioned, my name is Sean McLean, and I'm the Senior Account Manager and Product Specialist here at Bytron Aviation Systems. Going to talk a little bit about some of the integrations that we can offer here at Skybook, and as I'm sure everybody is aware, integration is key if we're going to encourage efficiency within flight operations, not only in getting a data dump into the airline and being able to use that data, but in making sure that the integrations are smart so that the data is usable in the correct locations within your workflows. At Skybook, we've experts in integrating systems and have been leading the way for many years now. And we work in partnership with our airline customers to understand their integration requirements and any problems that need solving. We map out the integration from data source to endpoint, whilst determining each user's accessibility needs. And the benefits of creating integrated data solutions include having an automated data management flow, connecting the workflow from pre-flight to post-flight, improved accuracy in communication, as well as saving time and increasing data availability. We've listed on the screen here some of the integrations that we offer at Skybook, and they can be managed via our own open APIs or APIs through third-party systems, as well as SFTP, IBM and even in some instances via email. Looking at OFPs, we currently accept OFP data from a range of sources, including Jeppesen, PPS, NavBlue, and Sabre. And the same is true for crew schedule and roster systems, where we work with AIMS, Blue One, as well as offering our own open API. We can bring load sheets into our digital briefing packs, working with agents such as iPort. We also have an integration with AMOS, where airlines are able to receive up-to-date MEL and deferred defect data within our briefing application. On top of this, we update our weather data from sources such as the UK Met Office every 5 minutes, and our NOTAM services are updated every time a new NOTAM is released or one is closed, and that's through our integration with Eurocontrol primarily. RAIM information can be gathered and delivered as part of our digital briefing application, showing outages where applicable, which goes to further inform your pilots during their decision-making process. We also have the functionality to package all of the above into an EFF, which can then be relayed into third-party applications. And additionally, we offer in-app integration to systems such as FD Pro and Lido M Pilot, making life easier for colleagues on the flight deck so that they're not having to hunt around iPads for a host of different third-party applications. At Skybook, we like to look at working with a single point of truth concept, and our products can support safe operations and SMS compliance through a range of effective methods, including removing barriers for missed information. So an airline not using Skybook currently may have lots of different manual processes and are printing lots of paper flight plans. According to ICAO, direct operating costs make up an average of 44% of an airline's cost. And Skybook can work to assist in reducing these costs associated with fleet management, maintenance and crewing. The ground operating cost that ICAO states is around 27% of an airline's actual costs. And this is where Skybook can really come into its own, where we can make a tangible dent in 13% of those airline costs by automating labour-intensive tasks and reducing paperwork. Skybook reduces overhead costs by removing duplication of effort, by providing a single point of truth throughout its data workflow, automating multiple processes, and ending with a data return that is accurate and consistent. Our product range has various modules, all of which remove the requirement for expensive paper copies and printed documents. If we look at a case study for a mid-sized carrier of a fleet of around 50 aircraft carrying paper manuals, this could save over £128,000 sterling in printing costs and an additional £75,000 sterling in fuel each year. And if that doesn't sound like great value in itself, we can also look to reduce your costs through the integration of the different systems that we've just spoken about, eliminating or reducing costly subscriptions, as well as the time and effort that goes into having to pool resource and data across a multitude of different applications. When we look at briefing, we start with a copy of the OFP, which is a raw copy of the OFP that we provided, and we ingress that using an ARIG 633 format, preferably in an XML format. Through this section, you can conduct an FMS route check. You can update the sector. So if I've downloaded this briefing, as ahead of my operation, I can push the update sector, and that will get me the most latest weather and NOTAMs, as well as other briefing information that may have been added to the sector since I downloaded it. I can copy the flight plan. So if I need to use the flight plan in any other third-party applications, I can do so. And I can also open my flight plan in Lido Pilot or Jeppesen Deck Pro, depending on which navigational tool you're using as an operator. And finally, I can look to print the OFP. The second section is our interactive map, and this replaces the paper on glass feel that you'd have with traditional briefing weather charts. We overlay all the significant weather, clear air turbulence, and upper wind and temperature charts over your route plot, including the airfield status symbols that you can see as well, so that you can accurately brief the weather conditions that are going to be impacting your operation. You can remove and add layers. You can see your planned position data. And if I wanted to clear this up a little bit more, I can remove my range rings, I can remove my FIRs, and I can remove labels so that I'm seeing a more clearer picture for my own situational awareness. The symbols that you're seeing dotted around the route itself are the airfield status symbols, and they're split in half, where the top half relates to weather and the bottom half relates to NOTAMs, and they're color coded on a traffic light system. So red means critical, amber means warning, and green means everything's normal. And that's all configured by you at the airline that you're working at. We don't mandate what your minimas are, and everything is configured around your operating minimas and what NOTAMs you feel are most critical to your operation. If I zoom in to France, we can see a good example of where the weather is breaching our warning minima and that we have critical NOTAMs in force. So I'm going to select one of the airfields here, and for example, if we look at Nantes, we can see that there are 20 NOTAMs, and that's visible looking at the NOTAM tab at the top of the page. And we can also see that it's actually the wind speed in the METAR that's causing our warning minima to be breached. And it's being indicated there with the amber or yellow symbol next to it. Visibility and the cloud base is actually in line with our normal operating minima, and they've got the green symbol next to them. And then when you look at the TAF, You can see that the wind speed is still going to be breaching our warning minima even in the future, and there's no real change to the visibility or cloud. It's all well and good us having these great integrations with agencies such as Eurocontrol, but as I'm sure you're all aware, you can get NOTAM overload, and that can be caused by an airfield having significant numbers of NOTAMs that aren't actually relevant to your operation. So we've developed a filtering system here at Skybook, which enables you as the pilots on the flight deck to filter the NOTAMs based on what your airline deems to be critical, warning, or normal. You'll see you've got those three buttons that are named normal, warning, and critical. And if I select critical, it takes 20 NOTAMs down to 1, and you can see quite clearly there that it's quite a critical NOTAM, and the runway is actually going to be closed Monday to Friday between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. If I want to revert back to this, I can bookmark the detail and make a quick annotation of why I'm bookmarking it. So the nonce runway, I save that, and on the top banner there's a bookmark symbol. Depending on where I am in the app, I can always return back to this bookmark. So if I need to rebrief myself, say this was for my destination and I want to refresh myself of the NOTAMs that are going to be impacting me close to the time, I can return back to the briefing page, but without having to hunt for this information. Away from the interactive map itself, we also list the airfields in a really easy order. So the first airfield you'll see is your departure station. The second airfield is your destination, and then your destination alternate. And then all of the following airfields are your en route alternates. And those en route alternates are gathered based on the route swathe that you can see on the briefing map itself. Just looking back into Manchester, you can see nice day in Manchester actually. NOTAMs wise, there's only three NOTAMs, and if I press the critical button on there, then there are no NOTAMs in effect. What we are seeing though is a SNOTAM in force for Manchester, and that's indicated with the SNOTAM at the top of the page as well. We have the same process for FIRs. So we have an FIR status symbol where the top half relates to SIGMET and the bottom half relates to the NOTAMs that are in force. So looking at the London FIR today, there are 2 SIGMET messages in, and they're obviously valid for the duration of the flight that's being operated here. And we've also got 33 NOTAMs. And again, we have the same filter capability. So I can click critical, and that then reduces it down to the 5 NOTAMs, which are most important to me. If this was an ETOPS sector, we would also have our ETOPS release information available to us, and the same if we were going oceanic and going across North Atlantic tracks. My North Atlantic track information would also be displayed here, and again that would be available for bookmarking should that be relevant as well. We then do also bring in the charts, and these are all charts that are created in-house at Skybook based on the various integrations that we have with our weather providers, ensuring that the information is most accurate and up to date. So you have your route plots, your wind and temperature charts, your SIG weather charts, and these are all controllable by the pinch and zoom function. But ultimately, these are paper on glass, whereas the interactive mapping actually gives you a little bit more scope to build your situational awareness. And then finally, we have our vertical profile chart. The final part of our digital briefing is the notices section. And this is where the ground teams that are working at the airline are able to communicate either through attachments or free text messages to the operating crew. So if I look at my notices, I can see there's no actual physical notices for this flight, but there is one for other airfields that might be impacting. So London Heathrow is going to be one of our en route alternates, and you can see here that actually we've got a fleet crew notice for London Heathrow that they're going to have reduced de-icing capabilities. That is a really easy way of having an integrated OCC to your flight deck and ensuring that it's got other days of needing a crew briefing room where you'd have all these notices either on a briefing board or within a briefing file. These can now be targeted to particular aircrafts or particular routes, city pairs, or single airfields, as you can see with London Heathrow here. We also have sector attachments. So I've got here there's an access to aircraft documents that will open up as a PDF. And this is just, again, another flight crew notice around the boarding of company aircraft. Other examples that we see being used in sector attachments can be general declarations, dangerous goods NOTAMs, crew management information, training information, anything that would previously have had to have been included within your briefing in a paper perspective can now be uploaded into Skybook and captured digitally as part of your overall briefing. And then the final section is our sector messaging section. So if there are any free text messages that the ground teams need to pass on to the crew, but don't want to disturb minimum rest periods, for example, these can be entered via the sector messaging section. For example, here I've put for myself to contact the crewing department to discuss changes for next week, but anything is required from an information and data perspective from the ground teams to the flight deck teams can be entered in this area. Once we're happy that we've completed our briefing and we've made use of the interactive map and the integration with the weather and NOTAMs that we're receiving, we can then select the button at the top of the page and accept our sector. And this performs a digital handshake between the application itself and the ground portal, so that the all-important audit trail starts to be collated in the flight record vault. So gone are the days of having to send back a void report in a paper envelope. We were getting an automatic indication of when you in the flight deck are ready to proceed with the next phase of your flight, and that's being stored electronically within our ground portal. Gone through how our briefings are updatable using an interactive OFP and interactive mapping and charts, and demonstrated the way that we display real-time airfield and FIR data with METAR, TAFs, NOTAMs, ASHTAMs, and more. We've gone through the smart NOTAM filtering, so using that data that we've integrated through from Eurocontrol, you're able to harness the NOTAM data that's most important to you in the flight deck, as described by your operating company. I've shown you how we can use notices, sector attachments, and messages to further build the briefing picture and enhance the communication flow from the ground teams to your flight deck. And we've mentioned how that briefing data will then be synced to the flight storage with the click of the acceptance of that sector button, building that single point of truth based on the data integration that started the journey with the ingress of the OFP and crew data.
So what else Skybook offers aside from the digital briefing? So Skybook has a ground portal and an EFB. The ground portal is packed full of features such as our dispatch management system and ops board for seeing schedules and delays, a flight tracking with live and planned position data and deviation aircraft alerts, airfield and NOTAM watch for brilliant safety awareness, reporting and analytics of post-flight data and accessing historic flight information. And then the other parts of the EFB that you won't see today is the streamlined journey log process, our bespoke digital forms for massively reducing paper reliance, and a document library for accessing digital manuals and documents. We focus on 4 key areas for airlines, that is safety and compliance, cost reduction, operational efficiency, and resilience, and just got a short example for each one. So within safety and compliance, Skybook removes pre-flight distractions by providing crews with critical weather and NOTAM data required to plan and brief effectively. Cost reduction, so on average, like Sean mentioned before, 50-tail airline could save over 200,000 each year, reducing printing costs, fuel savings, third-party app reliance, and streamlining all that data. So operational efficiency, save huge amounts of time. For example, creating a full voyage of multiple sectors in one briefing pack means there's no need to download sectors in between turnarounds. And then finally, resilience. An example of this is that we are the only EFB system to guarantee a solid 99.95% uptime guarantee. And that comes also with our 24/7, 365-day-a-year support service as well. We welcome any questions, big or small. Put them in the chat and we'll aim to answer them. Is there any APIs available for integration?
Yeah, so we have a host of our own open APIs in which third-party providers of data can obviously integrate their own data into Skybook, but we do work with other third parties in order to make sure that we're getting the right data that makes the most sense to the airline. Our partners at Jefferson, PPS, for example, we're constantly looking to improve the integrations that we have through their own APIs and working with development team to enhance the service that we can provide to ensure that the most relevant data is contained within the Skybook briefing that we can give to you.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. Another question. Is the system running from your servers or could it be installed locally for data backup?
Yeah, really good question. So Skybook actually is hosted within Amazon Web Services, and we have two different locations that's being hosted, so that we have got resilience. And as Dan mentioned during his brief, we're proud of our 99.9995% uptime. The only time that we've had any system downtime in the two and a bit years that I've been here has been because of scheduled maintenance, and we're talking 20 minutes or so, if that. However, you don't need to have a data connectivity on your iPad if you want to use Skybook. As long as you've already downloaded the sector, you can then complete the data entry and briefing within Skybook on the application, and that data stores locally within the iPad itself. So that post-flight, when you're doing your post-flight sign-offs, which we'll come on to in future webinars, you really quick process to bring up those locally saved backup files, and then you can retransmit them back to the ground portal. And then everything that is transmitted back into the ground portal is then hosted back within our ground. Everything that is transmitted back post-flight is obviously stored within our servers that are hosted by Amazon Web Services.
All right. Well, thank you for your time, everyone. We hope you found the webinar useful, and we will look forward to seeing you in future webinars and discussions and chats. Have a great rest of the day, and yeah, we look forward to seeing you in the future.